Good morning, Morgan County. Woohoo! It's time for Positive Actions from the Morgan County Partnership with our hosts today. I'm Mrs. Hott, Positive Actions and Digital Media Facilitator. Today's Positive Podcast is called Positive Actions for Emotional Wellness. Sharing is caring.
Yeah, hi, hola, es hora de acción positiva. Hi community, I am Mrs. Sheima, Morgan County Partnership Positive Actions and Digital Media Facilitator. Today, Positive Podcast is called, in Spanish, Acciones Positivas para Bienestar Emocional. Compartir es cuidar.
Thank you, Sheima. The Morgan County Partnership joins you weekly with an exciting look at positive programs, news, and features to help build empathy, to foster core values, health, wellness, and family wellness in our homes, community, and around the world.
Whether you are 2 or 92, each new Partnership Positive Podcast will feature fun and exciting information to help you manage and balance life here in Morgan County to West Virginia and beyond.
We are ready today. All right, Sheima. All right, neighbors. We're ready today to talk about a new positive core value, which we do each week. And in case if this is your first time on, Sheima and I talk about a new value word every week. And these are values that help us to build a network, a positive values network, a network of neighbors who work together for our community. We helping each other just get through another day. And we have resources that connect and to meet our basic needs. Are we ready, guys? Sheima, I'm like, we have more people. Let's get started. I can't wait to talk about this word this week, neighbors. Positive actions for emotional wellness. Sharing is caring. Thanks for listening. And remember this, you can also watch the podcast on Positive Actions YouTube channel too. Today, Miss Sheima and I, we're going to chat about emotional wellness. And we're going to talk about, this is our fourth and final chapter for our curriculum in Morgan County Schools, which focuses on the golden rule. And this week, our positive value is sharing. The word of the week is sharing. And what a great illustration of that golden rule, sharing. Ms. Sheima, can you tell us a little bit about what sharing means? And can you tell us a little bit about it in Spanish?
Sure. Sharing in Spanish is compartir and means to give something to another. Also to use occupy or enjoy jointly with others.
Compartir. Can we say that?
Compartir.
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 Oh, I need to practice. Compartir. Great. To give something to another. Something. All right, neighbors, we're going to talk about sharing today, to give something to another. And sharing is also when we occupy, we can share the same area, we enjoy the same things jointly, and things that could be events we share, ideas, it could be all kinds of things, right? I can't wait to talk about this word because talking about positive actions and talking about values, when we do this today and we go back to the basics sometimes, neighbors, it helps us build a foundation today for a better tomorrow, okay? And sharing is a word that we talk about with little ones a lot, right? I know maybe preschool or maybe you have a toddler. It's a tough concept to understand. But as a matter of fact, I have to tell you something, Sheima. This happened over the weekend. What? Sharing, an illustration of sharing. Because I was thinking it's hard to understand whether you're young or old, but sometimes you see it also in animals too. This weekend, Katie was home. Katie and her husband, Brian, they live in DC. And when she comes home, she has a golden doodle named Maisie. Okay. So they bring their dog with them when they come to visit. So they were home for Easter. Which was wonderful because for the first time, Katie had and I, we were us here at our house. We both have both vaccines and we're both past the week. Guess what I got to do?
What?
I got to hug Katie. It's been over a year. So we got to share a hug. It was so cool. And it was just nice to have that, because, and it happened just as the CDC said, still keep it limited in your household. Don't have multiple households gathering. So it was just us and Katie, but I got to hug her. It felt so good. Yeah. But when she comes home, like even before the pandemic, she'd bring her dog Maisie. Now, we have another dog at our house. Her name is Zoe. Okay. And Zoe is an adopted dog who came from a shelter. And Zoe is now 10 years old. Okay. And Maisie is 6. And Maisie's a golden doodle, and we don't know what Zoe is, but she's very gentle. But she barks a lot. Zoe does. And Maisie is a pup. I mean, she's like at 6 years old, she's still a pup. But when Maisie comes out, Maisie's always been inside and always has the routine. When she goes out, she likes to play ball, and they've got this fancy thing where they throw the ball chucker. And so what we do is we tie Zoe so they don't like have problems, or sometimes dogs don't always get along. And when they were first introduced, it was sort of like, oh, we don't like that, so we try to keep them separated. Well, this visit, we're like, hey, let's see if they'll try to, interact and be more friendly, because it's sort of different at our house. We did have a third dog, would have been a third dog, and Hershey passed last week. So we thought, well, maybe removing that with just 2 of them, maybe we wouldn't have any issues, right? So Maisie's out with her dog, and Zoe's doing great, and they're together. Zoe's not tied outside, and Brian's throwing the ball, and Maisie was totally doing something else, and it was Zoe's turn for the ball. So we're going to talk about this with toddlers, sharing and taking turns. Well, it was the first time Zoe got the ball. She's like, oh, I got the ball, and picked it up, and Zoe has the ball. Maisie didn't like it, and Maisie went and got on top of Zoe, and then the 2 of them started to argue about, in dog ways, like, yes. Oh, and Maisie didn't want to share her ball, and so Zoe was like, okay, I finally got the ball. So she wanted the ball because Maisie had the ball. So they fought over sharing the ball. Brian got in the middle of it, stuck his leg in there because they were at each other like this. He got bit in the leg.
No way. Oh my God.
Yeah, he had boots on, so it didn't like break the skin or anything. But it gave him a bruise. So we got him separated, and we had put Maisie in the house. And Zoe got her ear hurt a little bit, but she's fine. I mean, they thought they were fine.
Wow.
But sharing can be hard, we saw that. We saw how when it doesn't work, it can escalate into conflict, right? Sharing can escalate when people can't share too. It can escalate into conflict, like the pets did too. But you know what? I couldn't watch it. It was starting. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was like this. Like I can see what's going on, because I didn't want any of the dogs to get hurt or anything. So, but we got her in the house. I jumped up, and as soon as I opened the door, Maisie ran inside, and then she was like, wait a minute, where's my ball? It's my ball anyway, But you know what? Sometimes pets, but people. Sometimes it's hard to understand, isn't it? It's like, where's mine? I want mine too. Really, right? I sort of got a little sidetracked, but that was like crazy. That was over a ball. But I want to talk today about sharing like ideas. It's not just our things, sharing our ideas, sharing our time, sharing attention. Sharing is when you give something. It doesn't have to be an item like a ball with Zoe and Maisie, but sharing ourselves with others. And sometimes, it's why is it so hard to share? Why do you think, Sheima?
Because if nobody teaches us how to do it, we're not going to know.
That's a good point, right? If nobody, I agree with that. If we don't teach, and let's take a look at that. What are some ways that we can help teach others to share? And I think a reason it's hard to is because we have these new things, phones, and I think we might as toddlers go through all these lessons, but then we grow up and we get this, and then it's like we're just focused on one thing, and maybe we got to put that down and let's connect and share ourselves. I feel that's important too.
Yeah, and for teaching others, we have to start with us too. We have to learn how to share, and then we can teach others.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, if we're parents, we have to start with ourselves.
Exactly. And if you're not a parent, there are still things you can do with these tips that will help you when you're out around others as well. So neighbors, today we found this article on Today's Parents that we want to share. And the article, let me tell you what it's called: 5 Tips for Teaching Your Toddler How to Share. So this is by Stacy Irvine. And it's from 2017 on Today's Parents, if you'd like to Google it and follow along. It's pretty cute. It has an adorable picture of a little blue-eyed toddler here with, it looks like a waffle, right? But, and he's basically getting ready to share, isn't he? And from toddlers on, and like we say, whether you're 2 or 92, you know, my dad's getting close to 92. He just turned 85. Can you believe it? And can I tell you something about Pap too? Boy, does he share. You know what I mean? And I think of all of the values that with my dad that over the years, and I'll be 56, but one of the things that the core value, sharing with others, he has got it right. You know, I've seen him as I know when I was little growing up, he worked hard. He worked multiple jobs when my mom was home. And then my mom went to work too when I was a teenager, but my dad would share, and we had a garden, and we always had food. We canned, we worked hard, we shared. And when the family came down, we had big meals and people come and we'd share a meal. But he just always has always been giving. It's just not just his things. And sometimes he'll give everything too. You know, if he thought you needed, he'll share that too. But he also sharing his time and his stories. Always got so many good stories. And what I love a lot is like if you say, "Hey, Pap, tell me about," and then when he shares a story, it's like, wow. And his sister Aunt Marion, they get the two of them together. So I'm sidetracking. We'll get to these tips in a second here. But his sister came down, and she's 81, and came down to the farm, and we were all outside social distancing and all, because we had cousins, a few people around. And yesterday we celebrated Pap, 85. And so people who couldn't come sent pictures and well wishes and things like that. But the stories that I didn't know, like how my Pap would play, my dad, we call him Pap, he would play radio announcer, and he would play with the buttons on the stove, and he would announce the Grand Ole Opry or the Wheeling Jamboree. He'd be an announcer, right? And making like media stuff in the late 1930s. So neighbors, now look at this. Here I am, the daughter of Bobby McBee, announcing, you know. So he shared something that he played, you know, make-believe with. He shared this story that now I get to share stories with others on what he did as a little boy. And they're like, oh, isn't that cool? Now the technology has changed a good bit. And I found some pictures of that. But, you know, now we have all of this kind of stuff that we use to share stories with. But yeah, he shared that. But Pap, you know what? Bobby McBee, 85 years old. What an illustration, what an example of sharing, you know. And what he's done with his time, he loves to, like, he mows and he trims, and the place that he's created, it's just perfect. It's just, I mean, it's beautiful. And I like, now I have a friend, a shout out to Bridget Christie Sheima. She lives over like on the I think it would be the north part of the county, but she works at Pleasant View, which is the far east part of the county. But to get to work every day, she's a first grade teacher. Miss Christie, you might know her. She drives by my mom and dad's house. And all the time, I mean, over the years, she'll say to me, I just love driving by, because she's from Clarksburg, and it reminds her of where she grew up. And so she'll drive by and she'll tell me, boy, I drove by your dad's place, and she'll say, it's so beautiful. And I'm like, oh. And that's because of all it wasn't always a lot of money or anything that he wouldn't have, but he shared that time to take care of this place that used to be his dad's place. and he makes it beautiful. And for Bridget, Miss Christie to say, hey, I drove by and boy, that place is so pretty, it's just like what he was able to share through his gift and making it beautiful. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. And sometimes she's like sees him out on the road and he'll stop and talk, and he'll talk and share. He'll talk a long time. If you're driving by Pap's house, have some time because you'll have to stop and hear some story. But it's cool. We should go down there sometime, Sheima.
Okay. For me, it's perfect.
Yeah. We should do that because then he could. Oh, you should, because he'll talk about like in the 40s, the road used to be over here, and then they moved the road that way, and he knows the reasons why. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this was that, and there's other road that, well, it was never a road. It was called a logging trail that goes up through the woods, and I remember him telling me the story of his pap. My pap, his dad would bring like trees down. They drag him with a horse called Bob, and my dad's name is Bobby. And I think that was the horse's name, or I might be wrong. Anyway, but that's how that lane got there, because they would drag out the trees and stuff, sharing stories, right?
I love to hear your stories.
I need to shut up, right?
No, I love it. It makes me feel like, yes, keep talking. I love it.
Well, I was digressing. I got excited thinking about Bridget telling me, "Oh, I just drove by and it's so beautiful." And yesterday, when we had my mom had a cake from Food Lion, and my sister Joan was there, and she had Easter decorations, and her husband Dave, and she brought my dad's favorite pie, chocolate pie. And desserts. My mom, she knew Brian was coming, and Levi both like lemon cookies. So my mom, those are things you can share. Somebody's favorite dessert, lemon cookies, and guys, neighbors, I really didn't expect to talk about Pap's birthday so much.
I love it. It's a celebration. It's a celebration of life. Why not? Let's share this.
Okay. Are you ready to share some tips, Sheima?
Sure, Mrs. Hott.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do some positive actions for our kiddos.
Positive actions to starting with toddlers, and then from 2 to 92 or 85, like Pap. He taught me to share, and how can we teach others to share too? All right. What's our first tip, Miss Sheima?
Start young. It's never too early to teach our kids how to share. We have to teach them because they didn't know how to do it. So maybe with modeling or telling them the action that they have to do. Because sometimes we say, oh, you have to share your toys or you have to share your meal. But we never tell them, you have to do this. That's the way to do it.
Yep, starting, and you have a 2-year-old, right? Yeah, so you're right. And my 2-year-olds are all turned into teenagers and adults. But I remember those days, starting young to share, teach them to share with someone else. And it's hard. It's like, I don't want to give up my ball and share it with, somebody else. So what are some things that we can do? Because when you hear it, like if somebody's over, you have to share this. You hear that, it's like, why do I have to share that? Because it's mine. And I read this in this article. Wait a minute, maybe it's up here. It says, they're used to, our toddlers are like, these are their things, and that's what's in their universe. And developmentally, I think that's what they know right then. And so when you introduce, like, okay, now you have to take this and share it with somebody else, that's got to be difficult, because in their mind, wait a minute, why do I have to share that? And I think the reason why is because the feeling you get when you do, because if you give them a chance to see the enjoyment when somebody has something that's yours, they get to know, wow, look what I did. I made that person feel good when I shared my toy. You know what I mean? And it's like Pat makes me feel good when he shares how he takes care of things. And I hear my friends say, look, just sharing that beauty. That I like that feeling to hear Miss Christie say, So when they're a toddler, when we start them young and they get the feeling that's all about positive actions, neighbors, positive thoughts, actions, and feeling. We have the thought we're going to share. Sometimes it's hard, but we give something and let them share it. And then how we feel and how we experience that is the reason, and we need to start young. Now, the next one, number 2, what's it say, Sheima?
Be a role model. We talk about this in positive actions, yeah?
Yeah, we did. Be a role model. Practice sharing with your child at home and make it fun. Today's parent says, tell your toddler that you want to share the couch for a cuddle or a talk about taking turns while enjoying some ice cream together. So I guess, be a role model and make it fun. If you're talking to them about it at a time where they're feeling loved in the lesson, not where they're hearing you yell at them, I said to share that, you know what I mean? Then
everything starts with the love. If we teach them from the love instead of the hate or the fear, it's more impactful. If we teach something from the kindness, from the caring, from the love, it's more impactful. Like you're gonna feel it better.
And then as a toddler, when they feel it from the love, then they're going to be with their friends and they go to school and they're going to know that. And you know what, even the world as a community, sometimes we give donations for backpacks or something like that. And when you know that you're helping, look how that from a toddler grows into a program that Ms. Caperton has done that's helping people are sharing and helping kids have meals. I mean, it goes to real practical things too. Now, tip number 3 for sharing, make believe. The writer recommends cooperative games that don't involve a single winner for children 3 years old and up. While competition isn't bad, they say sometimes it's not appropriate for preschoolers. What do you think they mean by that? I think, it's not always about, winning. Like I told the story with the dogs. It wasn't about, it's my ball.
Yeah, it's like the power, the discussion power all the time. Even with parents and kids, like we have this power. I am the father, I am the mother, I have the power, you are the kid. Maybe they're going to feel the same. If I have the ball, I am in control of the situation. I got the power. But it's not about powers. It's about positive actions and feelings. It's more important how you're going to feel and how this person is going to feel instead of a material, instead of a ball. Right. So it's not about power or competition. It's about sharing an emotion.
It's not about the thing at all. You take it away, it's not about the toy, it's about the experience when you share. Exactly. I like that. Now, but before we go to the 4th one, because sometimes we got to talk about the hard stuff too, because it's going to happen. Let's be realistic. There'll be conflict and they'll be like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to give this up, and sometimes, I see that happen with adults. I mean, even, it can happen in the neighborhood. It's like, I'm not sharing my parking space or downtown or things like that. There'll be conflict that we'll see. And I see it, you can kind of see it around the world, right? People's like, when there's maybe even with like a big catastrophe and we send aid when they had the fires or floods or things like that, people are like, oh, I'm not going to share with that person. I got to take care of me. But that's not, I mean, sure, you got to make sure you have your needs too. But when you also give to others, it's also a way to help, It makes you feel, it does make you feel good. But when a conflict comes up, I think, for me, sometimes it's like, okay, I got to realize I maybe for neighbors too, it has to be for that person, that has to be right for that person to give to someone else, but we can't say you didn't do it, because when you point back to that person and say, hey, how I'm doing this and you're not, you're also pointing your fingers back at yourself, and you have to realize, well, maybe there's a situation we don't know about, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's not about a negative action or a positive, because sometimes we say, oh, he's not sharing or she's not sharing because this. We can't say that. We have to value why they are not doing this, and they're like, okay, I know you are fair because you don't want to share your bowl, and I understand this. Sometimes that's happened to me, and just value their emotion, explaining to them what's happened with this and how we can do it better. But we can't say this time,
right?
Yeah, we can't say this is bad, you can't do it. No, don't do this. You have to share your toys. You have to share your meals. You have to share everything. It's not about yelling to them and saying, you are so bad. No, it's fine. I understand you don't want to share. We're going to learn how to do it together. I value your emotion.
Right. And when they hear that, then the next time comes along, they're going to go, hey, okay, I'm feeling this and now I know why. And it takes time, sometimes it just takes trying an effort, and maybe the next time is a little better, then the next time's a little better, and the next,
it's a practice in action.
It's a process. It's a process for toddlers, and it's a process for adults.
For
right?
adults, yeah, definitely.
Now, this next tip I used a lot with my toddlers who are teens now. It says pocket timer. Bring a pocket timer to a play date. Now, we in our house, so we'd have a lot of crowded, but when sometimes you need a technique to interject, and I didn't have a pocket timer, but I had the buzzer on my microwave, and I would set the timer. I'm like, well, we could try it this way and see what it feels like. But today's parent says, bring a pocket timer even to a play date, or maybe your timer on your microwave. When it rings, it's your child's turn to give her toy to a friend. Then she gets it back when the timer rings again, and so on, back and forth. And parents today says they start learning that giving something away isn't for always. Because when I heard that, I thought, oh, maybe they feel like they're not getting it back. That's not what sharing it is. It's having that experience when they get, and then the timer, they can see how much they enjoy it, and then the timer goes off and they get it back too. So, I mean, that worked in my house between the boys when they were little. And then, sometimes when there's a conflict and you do have to interject, maybe this is a technique to help. Now it's your turn. And then there, I think too, there needs to be the conversation. How'd you feel when you got to see?
What I mean? That's cool too, because you're teaching them how to share and respect too. We are going to respect the time and the turn for everybody. So you're teaching two things different in the same time.
Yeah, isn't that neat? Oh, I didn't think of that. You're right, Sheima.
I use the timer. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Tell me about the timer.
Oh, I use the timer. It's not for sharing a toy, but Itaka, she likes to brush her teeth by herself. But we know toddlers, they're still practicing, so I have to brush her teeth. So I used my phone timer. I do like 1 minute. I was like, okay, when it's finished, it's my turn, and then I can do another minute for your turn. So I brush her teeth in 1 minute, and then when the timer of my phone is gone, she's like, Mama, it's Itaka's turn. So I give her the brush, and she can brush. Maybe that's a tip for.
That's a good idea too, right?
Yeah. Because she always she doesn't like to. Us to brush her teeth.
Oh, boy, Sheima, before you know it, she'll be brushing her teeth and rinsing and all, you know what? And you'll be like, remember that day when I told Mrs. Hott and then we took a timer, and you can tell her, and she'll be doing it all. It's little steps. Every day is a new day for. Yeah. Sometimes I don't like brush my teeth too, Ithaca. All right,
she likes to brush her teeth, but by herself, so.
Oh, and she doesn't want to stop.
I have to do it.
Oh, goodness.
That's funny.
All right, one more sharing tip for toddlers. What did they say from today's parents, Ms. Sheima?
Finally, remember to use descriptive phrase when your child does share.
Descriptive phrases. What does that mean?
Instead of saying, oh, you share instead, oh, good job, you just share. Saying, oh, I see you give some of your apple to your cousin. That was really helpful. Thank you.
This is my favorite one. I love how you said that too, Sheima. Like, instead of, oh, you're such a good boy, or oh, you're such a good Ithaca, it's like, what does that mean? Because you still walk away going, that really sucked. I didn't want to share that toy. Now I'm a good boy for something that felt like it sucked, right? But if you say, like, hey, did you see how Bobby smiled when you gave him your toy? You go, or did you see how much he liked that? Look how happy he is now. And then, and then look how happy Bobby is to see you share. To see you be happy too. And isn't that, guys, neighbors, isn't that what we want? We want to see our neighbors and our family and our friends, like when we share things, like, look how they feel. You made them feel good. And neighbors in Morgan County, the Morgan County Partnership, we're here each week with a new value word that helps us recognize and look back and say, values are so important. But why? Because it builds that network of core values. When you come together, you're feeling good and they're feeling good, and we're helping each other get there. You know what I mean? Just like with this toy. Hey, when we shared, did you see how he felt? And I love that. That's one reason I like to share. I like to do it just because it's that reaction that gives me like it's like butter and champagne, you know what I mean? That happiness and champagne. It's like that reaction that the other person gets. You do it for them, and maybe that's a little bit of empathy. See how they feel and all that. It just makes my day, you know.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Miss Sheima, I think it's about time to roll along. What do you think? For all ages, we come together and we've talked about the value of sharing. And maybe at your house tonight, neighbors, you guys can talk about sharing and how does sharing make you feel. And it's okay if somebody says, it kind of sucks when I have to share my stuff, mom or dad, you know, because sometimes it does. But when you see that other person's reaction, that's what it's all about, right? Core values, and these values we need to build in our classroom, and sometimes it's hard, and remember, the hard thing to do is the right thing to do. Next week, guys, we're going to talk about integrity, and you do it not just to get something back, right? You do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
All righty. Okay, community, we're getting ready to go now, talking about our core values. We do it today to build a better tomorrow, right, Miss Sheima?
That was awesome, neighbors. Thank you so much for joining us. Neighbors from 2 to 92, young and old, it's been fun podcasting with you today. We hope you find some positive actions out in the world this week. Bye.
Bye, Miss Sheima. Remember, parents, teachers, mom, dad, kids alike, you are not alone, okay? We are one network of neighbors. We're one, we're unique, we're important, and wonderfully made. Thanks for joining us. Remember, positive actions for emotional wellness. Sharing is caring.
Caring.
Yeah, cool. All right.